Beautiful downside move in the markets today. Welcome back to another trade recap. Today is February the 26th. It is a Thursday today. The day after Nvidia earnings, we had plenty of volatility in the markets, which was expected after the news event, of course. I haven't taken a trade in the past 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday, but I did finally take a trade today, which was a nice downside move. It felt really good to finally have a super solid trade. The markets have been testing our patience quite a bit the past few days. Let's head on to my trading statistics, and then we'll go on to the trade that I ended up taking today. But as you can see right here, so far, the past 3 weeks, I'd say, have been a lot slower in the markets, a lot more mean reversions, less continuation. Similar thing today. We'll kind of talk about the pre-market game plan, but I was actually leaning a little bit more towards the upside. But within the first 5 minutes, I knew we are most likely going to end up gravitating back down in towards our previous day lows. So, as you can see so far, monthly statistics shaping up fairly nicely here. Ended up making $7.3 thousand today, putting me up about $12,000 for the week, $12.4 thousand last week, and then week number two, 12,000, and of course week number one, 55, to put me up about $92,000 for the month so far. First, let's go on to the exact trade I ended up taking today, which was on Nvidia towards the downside. I actually ended up missing a couple solid entries today. 5-minute range high, missed that one. Missed the SPY 5-minute range high retest towards the downside. So I missed quite a few solid setups, but today I was expecting, of course, continuation after Nvidia earnings. Nvidia really wasn't on my radar coming into market open. I really wanted to see the reaction that we had within the first really 15 to 30 minutes, but really solid drop right off the bat. So that's why we ended up taking Nvidia towards the downside. But before we do that, let me pull up my pre-market game plan coming into market open here, of course. Okay, so what was the game plan coming into today? And I think today is a great example, along with the past 2 weeks, of why you shouldn't have a bias coming into market open. So coming into today, I was leaning a little bit more towards the upside, but ultimately, markets never showed any strength. Every single pop was shorted. Right off the bat, dropped towards the downside, rejection off our previous day highs. There was no buyers that stepped in whatsoever. And of course, this market, there's been a lot of mean reversions. So then we end up taking the markets towards the downside. So as you can see, February 6th game plan coming to market open. Today, what I like to see is the reaction around previous day highs. I would like to see the markets break and hold above previous day highs for continuation towards the upside, which did completely not happen. Main watches, Apple above previous day highs, Google above previous day highs. So a lot of the names I was talking about were looking for names above previous day highs, which none of them set up. Lots of things looking good today above our previous day highs key levels. That was coming into the market open, as I mentioned. By the time the market actually opened, we ended up staying really heavy. As for Nvidia, neutral intraday, but bullish on the higher time frames. I'm going to be more patient on this one right off the bat. This one, similar thing as well, right? Was a little bit more neutral intraday, but before the market opened, we actually ended up dropping towards the downside. And then we're actually ended up being more bearish intraday. So as you can see, these are my executions here. End up taking the 187.50 push towards the downside on a 1-minute retest off this order block. 5-minute rejection here as well. As you can see, I end up making $7,200. Perfect rejection off our 5-minute order block here for that nice continued push all the way towards the downside. So let's go over the overall thought process coming into market open. Starting off with the QQQ, of course. As you can see, the Q's coming to market open here. Fairly neutral, but leaning a little bit more towards the upside just based off of yesterday's price action. I mentioned longs are in play above our 617. Shorts, pop and fade, or now shorts underneath our after hours lows, which was our 614. As for the spot chart, I was leaning a little bit more towards the upside. I mentioned longs above our previous day highs for continuation. Right off the bat, we actually end up getting that rejection and continue lower. So as you can see, within the first 5 minutes, this was a telltale sign. Right within the first 5 minutes of market open, I immediately flipped my bias and I was looking for shorts for a continuation down in towards our previous day lows. Plus, we had a gap fill on the higher time frames, which we're looking for the markets to gravitate towards. So right off the bat, SPY and Qs drop. If we play out the first 15 minutes, You can see SPY weaker, Qs weak as well. And then of course, Nvidia within the first, or actually already before market open, Nvidia was already dropping towards the downside. So right off the bat, we're already dropping underneath this 197, right? Within the first 5 minutes, we're already underneath our previous day lows, underneath our after hours lows with earnings. So we're looking for downside here on Nvidia. Of course, Nvidia is going to lead the market towards the downside just because this is the major news event. So coming into market open here, as you can see, right off the bat, super solid push down. What we have underneath previous day lows, we had our 5-minute range retest. So this is the setup I wanted to take. Actually, the original setup here was on SPY, previous day lows. I'll talk about that here in a second. But SPY, this was an absolutely fantastic retest. I was a little bit hesitant on some of my entries just because the past few sessions, we've had a lot more mean reversions. So I was a little bit too hesitant on the downside. And of course, if you be more hesitant on the downside, you end up missing the best move because the downside, you have to be a lot more aggressive. So SPY, this was the trade I was looking for, ultimately missed it. Ended up closing at low of day, so I decided to skip out on this trade. Nvidia was looking for your 5-minute range low retest here as well, but I was a little bit hesitant just because first push towards the downside, right? I was just keeping an eye on the contracts. I didn't want it to be too aggressive on Nvidia, but this right here, I ended up missing this entry as well. So I was like, okay, right? I missed 2 solid 5-minute range low, right? Super low risk entries towards the downside. But today I am expecting continuation. Why? Because we just had Nvidia earnings. I'm expecting now continuation after Nvidia earnings, either towards the upside or the downside. And as you can see so far, SPY, every pop is being shorted, right? So coming into 10 o'clock, every pop is being shorted here. So I'm maintaining my bearish bias for a push down in towards our previous day lows. QQQ, similar thing, just mark out up close candle, maintain my bearish bias coming into 10 o'clock. And then Nvidia, the key level that I have marked out here was our 1-minute order block, which also coincides with our 5-minute order block. As you can see right here, 5-minute up close candle, we can have this marked out. So we have our 5-minute order block plus our 1-minute order block. We can be looking for an entry off our 5-minute opening range, us being a lot more selective, as I mentioned. So as soon as Nvidia flipped, this was coming into 10 o'clock. As you can see right there, broke back underneath this key level. This candle flipped as soon as it broke underneath its previous candle low, ended up entering in short. Basically, as this candle was forming, stop, just a break below. Now looking for continuation towards low of day plus towards the downside, which were our higher time frame targets. So as we play out the tape, you can see Nvidia hit low of day, scaled some off at low of day. Now looking for continuation down with the overall market. What ended up helping out Nvidia quite a bit was, of course, the QQQ along with the SPY. And we end up scaling basically my last contract perfectly down in towards that 184. But the main thing here was that SPY drop. Once SPY broke underneath key levels, we had that gap fill towards the downside. Really solid push down on the SPY. Really solid push down on the QQQ. But as I mentioned, I think the main thing to take away today in the past few days is to be selective, right? This past few weeks, if you look at my P&L calendar as I had earlier, it's been very tough, right? I've been taking a lot of no trades. I've been taking a lot of no trades. Been taking a lot more losers the past few weeks just because we've had no continuation in the markets, and that's normal because the break and retest, right? We're primarily looking for continuation, and if there's no continuation, we're going to take a lot more losses. Right, so we either want to be hands off, we want to scale a little bit more aggressively, we can do a bunch of things. But of course, now let's go on to the live session to show you guys exactly what I was looking for coming to market open. Let's kind of speed this up. But basically, I was kind of talking about my pre-market game plan. I was fairly bullish coming to market open, or I was leaning a little bit more towards the upside. But right off the bat, if we play out the first 5 minutes, I was not bullish whatsoever. Right, Nvidia's already underneath our previous day lows, underneath our 193. Q's dropping right off the bat here as well. If we keep speeding up the tape, I think I end up pulling up the SPY chart a little bit later. Let me play out. So the first 5 minutes you can see is bearish. So the first 5 minutes at this current moment, what I'm marking out here is the SPY. What we have here is the SPY previous day lows. Another thing that I actually didn't take aggressive early on to the day was because TradingView was kind of bugging out, so I didn't really have my levels. I tried refreshing it. A little bit of a bug on TradingView, which is unfortunate. But you can see the overall thought process here. I was looking for, right, the QQQ. We had our 5-minute range low marked out, but I like the SPY one a little bit better. The Qs, we had that up close candle marked out. So for SPY, up close candle plus your 5-minute opening range low, we're looking for this rejection for a push down and towards your previous day lows and below. We had a couple names I was looking for, but I was actually interested in trading the SPY here, which was the 691 puts. Ultimately, as I mentioned, I was a little bit hesitant on the entry, so I wasn't able to get in. You can see that would have been the entry right there, right? The flip on this candle right here, let's kind of speed this up. Sorry, rewind this. Right here, as soon as it broke back underneath, that would have been your entry point. Stop a breaker above, looking for a low of day plus continuation below. As I mentioned, hesitated on that entry, so I ended up missing out, or sorry, holding off on that trade. And then during the exact same moment, right, you can see Qs is right at our 5-minute, or sorry, our up close candle. SPY's rejecting so far. Nvidia at this current moment, I was keeping an eye on your 5-minute range low, plus your up close candle here as well. So I was looking for this rejection for a push lower. This would have been the best entry on Nvidia. But as I mentioned, similar thing. Hesitated on this one just a little bit and ended up missing out on this one as well. So during this exact moment here, right, SPY and Qs pushing towards the downside right off the bat, ended up missing 2 solid entries on Nvidia and SPY, but I was staying patient, right? I didn't want to chase price towards the downside. I was like, okay, I'm going to wait for the next setup. If it forms, great. If it doesn't form, then it might be another no trade day. But markets continue to show weakness, right? Stayed heavy. And then coming to 10 o'clock, basically I was commentating, I was looking for what's called a 10 o'clock drop or 10 o'clock flush. And as you can see, overall markets, right, the time right here is 9:58. I was looking for the Qs to maintain weakness. SPY maintain weakness, push towards the downside here. Nvidia, what I was looking for here was the flip. So Nvidia, as soon as it breaks underneath that previous candle low, right, any sort of weakness here, right, very tight risk. So Nvidia at this current moment, right, push towards the downside. Markets are heavy here as well, SPY and the Qs. Nvidia, if we can break back underneath this level, we can be looking for a flip, right? Very tight risk above. Entry, looking for a continuation towards low of day and below. So let's kind of speed this up. So right here, as you can see for Nvidia, as soon as it started breaking underneath, this is when you're interested in puts. At this exact moment here as well, Qs drop, SPY drop. The overall market just staying heavy here. SPY has a bunch of objectives towards the downside, so we're looking for this 10 o'clock flush. Nvidia, nice candle close, nice weakness here. And then as you can see, right, price just stayed heavy and you end up having that nice continuation. SPY, Qs, huge flush towards the downside, which was fantastic. And as you kind of speed up the tape here, right, I mentioned key level here was our previous day lows. If we can get back underneath our previous day lows, we can see another big drop here on the SPY and Qs. And we end up getting this huge flush here. I think this was a news candle as well, if I'm not mistaken. But Nvidia hit our main objectives, which of course was that 186. And I think we had other levels here as well. But basically, that was the trade thought process coming into today. Absolutely great day in the markets. Just good to, right, execute the trade, right? The P&L wasn't the biggest, but it was just good to nail a trade after having a lot of no trade days. Market's been a little bit tough the past few weeks. So it was just good, right? Execution wise, right? Of course, the P&L has been a little bit rough. Or not, I wouldn't say rough. It's just been a lot slower compared to January, the first week of February. So just playing a lot more defensive here, size down, right? Waiting for those good setups and just focused on executing the process. But yeah, that is going to be it for me today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy that. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. With that being said, I'll see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.